Hello children, today we are going to see from our chapter Ashoka, the emperor who gave up war. So, this is about the empire that Ashoka ruled. It was founded by his grandfather Chandragupta Maurya more than 2300 years ago. Chandragupta Maurya was supported by a wise man named Chanakya or Kautalya. So Chanakya's ideas were written in a book called Arthashastra. So children understand, Arthashastra was a book of Chanakya. He had written all his ideas in this book called Arthashastra. And Chandragupta Maurya's son Bindusara, the father of Ashoka. So before we see about the life of the Chandragupta Maurya, Bindusara and Ashoka, let us first understand what is a dynasty. A dynasty, when a member of the same family becomes rulers one after another. So this family is often called a dynasty. So the Mauryas were the dynasty with three important rulers. The Mauryan dynasty, three important rulers were Chandragupta Maurya, Bindusara and Ashoka. There were several cities in this empire. Pataliputra was the capital. The next was Taxila. Taxila, the gateway to the northwest and also including Central Asia. And Ujjain. Ujjain was a route from the north to the south, and many merchants, officials and craftspersons lived here. So the people of this place spoke different languages, their food and their clothes were everything very different. So how do you think the empires are different from kingdoms? So we have all heard of kings and kingdoms, but here we are seeing about a dynasty, about the emperors. So empires are different from kingdoms because they need more resources. Resources in the sense, let it be more tax, more money or more materials, because they needed a big army to protect them. As I said, the empires are bigger than kingdoms, so they needed more resources to protect their armies. And also they needed large number of officials to collect tax. So more and more officials were appointed to collect tax. So the capital Pataliputra was actually under the direct control of the emperor. Okay, and how the pattern, how they ruled their place was, the taxes were collected from farmers, herders, craftspersons and other traders. So the tax was collected from all these people. So these officials, whoever failed to disobeyed them, they were punished. So the officials, what they used to do is, if these people disobeyed them, they were punished. Okay, and they were supervised by royal family and senior ministers. So like Pataliputra was under the direct control of emperor, the other places were supervised by the royal family or the senior ministers. And even the royal prince was sent as a governor. So this is how they used to govern their places. They used to take control. Each one was divided. So Pataliputra under the emperor and other places by royal family or the senior ministers. And the royal prince was sent as a governor. Now you understand, children. So Pataliputra, as I said, was under the direct control and the tax were collected by these officials. So these officials collected tax from farmers, herders, craftspersons. And if these people failed and disobeyed them, they were punished. And the royal family and senior ministers supervised them. And even the royal prince was sent as a governor. So now we see that the Mauryans controlled the roads, rivers. As we know, the roads and rivers were the main path for transportation. So they had control over these roads and rivers so that they can collect more resources, tax and tribute. So we all know tax is cash collection. What is this tribute? So imagine if you're visiting someone's house. So we don't go empty handed. If they're welcoming you home, we take some fruits or some sweets or something in order to give them in return. Like when they're welcoming you home, you go to their house taking these things. So you're giving them a tribute. It is something, a respect. Okay, so that is the same way they had this control over roads and rivers. So whenever trade used to happen between different countries or different people, so the Mauryans collected the tax and tribute. And even the people living in the forest were not free from tax. Even the forest region, people had to pay tax, but not in the terms of cash or coins. They had to give elephants, like for war uses for the army. As we said, they needed big armies. So for armies, they used to, give elephants, timber, honey, wax, all these things that we find in the forest had to be given in turn of tax. So even the people in the forest were not left free. So another thing, Ashoka was a unique ruler. As we know that he was the most famous ruler, and he made sure that whatever messages he wanted to pass it on to his people, he used to do it in inscriptions. So inscriptions are written on either palm leaves or on wood bark, the thin layer of wood, or on thin layer of palm. You would have seen that the old sages used to write on the palm leaves. So that is how inscriptions were written, and it was written in two of the languages, either Prakrit or on Brahmi script. So Ashoka followed two languages to write his inscriptions. One is Prakrit and Brahmi script. Now, as we saw about Ashoka being an unique ruler, we shall see about the Kalinga War. This Kalinga War is a place. Kalinga is an ancient name of the coastal Orissa. So the coastal Orissa is where Kalinga was. And Ashoka, that was the last war fought by Ashoka. It was because he was so horrified by the violence and bloodshed in the war. He didn't want to fight another war again, and he was the only ruler in the world who gave up war after winning a war, because normally no rulers will give up war. So once you win a war, the ruler will fight again for another place. But Ashoka was the only ruler who gave up war even after winning this Kalinga. So he was very much horrified by the violence and bloodshed. So it was a very bad scene that he had seen there, and he didn't want that to again happen. And so later the thoughts of Ashoka changed. He brought about Dhamma. So this Dhamma actually did not involve any worship of God or any religion. What he felt Dhamma was like how a father will, teach the child how to do what are the good things and the duty of life. So he thought, like a father, he has to instruct his subjects. So it was his duty to instruct his subjects. Subjects are his disciples. So the reason was because, as I said, in Patliputra and in the other cities, there were people who followed different religion, different language, different kind of food, and the clothes they wore. So in turn, what happens is different religions led to conflict, that is fight and war. And slaves and servants were ill-treated. They were not treated properly. And there were quarrels in the family. So there were even fights in the families, neighborhood. So there were a lot of problems happening in the place. So he decided that he will solve it. And it was his duty, he felt he should solve it. So that is when he brought about the Dhamma Mahamata. So Dhamma Mahamata, this word Dhamma is a Prakrit word. So the Prakrit word means dharma in Sanskrit. So Dhamma is a Prakrit word meaning dharma in Sanskrit. So from the word dharma, the word from Sanskrit called dharma, he took that word and mentioned it as dhamma in the word Prakrit. So he brought about this Dhamma Mahamata. These people used to go from one place to another teaching people about Dhamma, that is Dharma. So they used to move from one place to another trying to teach people because he didn't want such problems happening within the people. And he also sent these Dhamma Mahamatas to Syria, Egypt, Greece and Sri Lanka. And later Ashoka built many roads, he dug wells and rest houses. Rest house is nothing but like you have seen a guest house, like when you travel from one place to another, we take a hotel or a lodge to stay. So that is how in those days they used to have rest houses. And he also arranged medical treatment for both humans and animals. So this is about Ashoka and Ashoka's last war and who are Dhamma Mahamatas and what is the word Dhamma means, okay, and the cities of the Ashokan Empire, that is Pataliputra, Taxila and Ujjain, and the three most famous Mauryan rulers. Okay, so I hope children you have understood this lesson. Thank you.